Well, if you thought that the only must-summon unit coming out for this Summer 9 secondary banner, or technically the Ordeal Call 1 banner, you'd be dead wrong, as MHXX Alter over here is a phenomenal servant in her own right, so much so that I did some summons to try to get her to NP5 myself. And without having her skills fully leveled, I will say I feel like I made a very good investment going for that servant. Now, I understand that a lot of people when we first saw her skills were calling her a hidden 5-star, because on paper, she seemed really good, and it's very easy to get swept up in that hype and say that, oh, this new servant is absolutely bonkers, and then after using them for a couple of weeks, realize, maybe they're not all that good. But getting some extensive playtesting in with this servant, I can call her a hidden 5-star. She is absolutely phenomenal, and we're going to break that down in today's video. And as always, if you enjoy the daily FGO content, make sure you drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. But with that being said, let's just go ahead and start diving into this, starting off with her hits. And I will say that for some people, it may seem as though the triple buster deck is going to be an issue. I acknowledge that I have that issue on my main JP account because I don't have Koyenskaya, but on the side account where I do have Koyenskaya and where I went for NP5 MHXX Alter over here, it's not as big of a deal because you refund at 20% because of Koyenskaya's second skill on all of your buster cards, right? So that's really strong in and of itself. But then whenever you do find the arts card, it's surprisingly powerful. You'll see this thing with only 0.65% NP gain and 4 hits on it, and with only 1, you might think, well, I'm gonna struggle to refund my NP, but it's surprisingly strong. I mean, we're talking going 0 to 100% NP on a nice arts crit. I mean, it's actually surprisingly good how much refund you're able to get on this. And again, in my own testing, I haven't really found an issue with the triple buster deck. It's usually something that I'm not as big of a fan of when it's not on Berserkers, because I feel like, Berserkers, go figure, can take advantage of a triple buster deck being super effective against everybody very, very well. But she's able to get some really good damage off on these, and as we'll break down in some of her skills, the crits are also just really nice, so I think it offsets the triple buster deck quote-unquote lacking in consistency. But again, I can understand if that's not your playstyle, right? Some people like to have a more balanced deck. Some people like to have the double buster, double arts, because they like to do immortal team comps where they can work really well with all their supports. I can understand that, but let me just tell you from my own use, not that big of a problem. But now let's start breaking down some of her skills, and these are all chock full of effects. And again, if you have not looked at her details, she is something else. So skill 1 over here is just giving you a plethora of good effects. You're getting double invincibility for 3 turns, a 20% attack buff, an immediate star bomb of 15 stars, and then 15 stars every single turn for 3 turns. So like how I mentioned earlier, that her ability to do very strong buster crits kind of offsets the ability or lack thereof of genning NP, even though again, I think it's fine. There would also be a problem if she didn't have a steady stream of stars, because she's not a quick unit anymore. She doesn't gen stars as easily. So instead what they did is they just said, here you go, immediately bomb some stars and just constantly keep a nice flow of them coming in every single turn for 3 turns. And this is on top of, say, if you're using her with a Merlin, who can do the same thing on his own NP, or Koyenskaya with her second skill being able to bomb 20 stars. So it takes a little bit of that pressure off of your supports to either have to provide immediate stars or, again, like Merlin, provided every single turn, because she's also providing some of her own. And this also works really well if you want to use her in any solo capacity, because now she has her own way of making her own stars. And it means that when you bring her into a solo fight, or maybe your supports go down, it means she's still self-sufficient and can take care of herself. And overall, skill 1 just lends to being a very strong skill all around. Moving over to her second skill, this is just kind of click this and have this up at all times. It's a 30% buster buff. It is buster star weight specifically, and then it also gives you 30% just general crit damage, although those lasting for 3 turns on a 6-turn cooldown. Again, this is just something that whenever you see that this skill comes back up, you just click it and just do good damage. There have been a few times where I was a little bit annoyed that because of the buster star weight specifically, I wasn't able to get an arts crit, because I can just immediately, again, like I mentioned earlier, refund pretty much all of her NP, right? Because surprisingly good arts card. But that rarely would come up and actually be a problem where I was in a scenario where I did need that arts card, right? For most of the time, it's going to be like, oh, okay, I'm missing out on this arts crit, right? But I'm going to be gaining these fat buster crits that are doing a butt ton of damage. And again, with Koyenskaya, I'm still getting that refund off. So maybe view it as more of a minor annoyance at times, but even then, like I'm saying, seeing big crit number go up is generally, in my opinion, worth the offset of not being able to do a fat arts crit. But this is also where her third skill comes into play, because her third skill is kind of just NP manipulation out the wazoo. And it's why I think her arts card is a lot stronger than it looks on paper, because what you're doing with this skill is you're going to be reducing all enemies NP gauge by 1, and then very similar to, say, someone like Yang, if you've ever used her, she will charge 10% of her NP depending on the amount of enemies that you're fighting. So if you're fighting 3 enemies, you'll get a 30% battery. 1 enemy, you'll get a 10% battery. But to almost offset that and to guarantee that at the bare minimum you're getting a 30% battery, which is the bare minimum you need to Buster Loop, she also has a 20% battery baked into the skill, and again, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, a 30% NP gain buff for 3 turns. It's just really strong all around. You get more rewards if there are more enemies. Say you have the main boss that you're fighting and then there's just mooks on the side. You get the benefit of that. But if you really didn't want to bring her to go fight some bosses for whatever reason, maybe you're just one of those guys that doesn't do CQs, but you did want to use her as a Buster Looper because she will be fairly good as a single target Buster Looper, she's at least at bare minimum got that 30% battery on the third skill over here. Although you might be looking at the skill and saying, well, ZTL, didn't you want the batteries to be on a 6-turn cooldown for Buster Looping and not a 7-turn cooldown? I think what we're seeing right now is them trying to take advantage of the 5th Append skill, the one that reduces your cooldown by 1 to 3 turns. I feel like that might be why they're building some of these servant skills like this, because it encourages you to go for the Append skills over there, which, if that is why they're doing that, I think that's a little greedy. I don't think I like that. Let's not see that design come up in the future. Then again, it was also the announcement of the 5th Append skill, and then Space Ereshkigal came out, and she's perfect for that, so I'm hoping it's just a little coincidence. You know, maybe that's just kind of how that works out, but, you know, I'm keeping my eye on you, Lisango. I'm watching you. But you know what else I'm going to be watching? This NP that she's got over here, because not only does it look amazing, it has just chocked full of very, very strong effects. Not only do you have a lawful power mod, you have a good power mod, but you also have, like, a true power mod against ruler class servants, because you have a 200% bonus damage. That is usually overcharge 5 levels of power mod damage, so for some reason, we're starting to get buffs for other servants, where take the Summer Masashi buff, for example, where she kind of takes the archer's jobs by having a 200% power mod against sabers. I don't know why we are just doing this with servants, where they're kind of like not invalidating entire classes, but, you know, quote unquote invalidating entire classes. But because MHXX Alter over here is very cute, I'm willing to give her the pass on it, plus it just makes her dummy nutty broken. And as if there just wasn't enough good stuff on this NP, she also gets a 20% self battery whenever she fires the NP, which could also be to offset that cooldown problem that we were talking about earlier, where usually you want your batteries to be on a 6-turn cooldown so they work better with Koyan Sky's skills. That might be why they threw the 20% battery on here. Again, keeping my eye on Lisango, making sure they're not doing nothing too greedy. Then again, it is a gacha game, so, you know, they're gonna be greedy in some areas, but this might be there to offset it, because you could think about it in the way that Artoria was able to farm, the normal Saber one was able to get the farming done even before Oberon came out, because she had the 30% battery and refunded 20% on her own NP, and so that might be why they threw that over there for her, so now she's got the 30-20 thing kind of just still going. But then, as if they didn't want to make her good enough, they also just gave her 10 to 30% NP damage that procs first whenever she fires her NP, which makes her even better with Oberon. So she's pretty much just got everything you'd want a servant to have. She's got batteries out the wazoo, she's got NP gain, she's got enemy NP control, survivability, she can maintain her own stars. I mean, she's just busted out the wazoo. And for a 4-star that is theoretically easier to pull than the banner 5-star, I think for a lot of people this is going to serve as a very strong consolation prize, not only for the immediate, you know, summoning right now on JP, but when she drops on NA, I think she'll also serve as a very strong consolation prize. I mean, it's really hard to go wrong with a servant that is not only good in boss fights, but also if you just need a single target Buster Looper, maybe you're missing out on somebody like Kentoki. Sure, she's not a berserker that you can bring anywhere. Technically, I guess she is a foreigner, so technically you could bring her anywhere, but you know what I mean. She's not super effective everywhere. Having lawful, good, and just anti-ruler in general is going to be very, very strong. And now, while I do wish that it was just ruler class enemies in general, because I think that'd open her up to more like weirder nodes that you could bring her to, it is also very, very fun to smack ruler class servants for 200% damage guaranteed. And I feel like if they just made it general rulers and not ruler class servants, they probably would have cut down on that power mod that they gave her. So that might be me being a little bit greedy and wanting her to have that on everybody. But hey, I'll take it. You know, if that's what we got to do to get that 200%, then by all means, let's just leave it as is. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I think she's absolutely phenomenal. I'll be using her a lot more in the future because I went for NP5 for a reason. But with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice one, and I'll catch y'all on the next video.